Hello, Garland Nixon, and we're hanging out with Dr. Jim Kavanagh, and we're going to get his thoughts on the absolute madness that is the Trump administration's drive to war. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here with Dr. Jim Kavanagh. And Jim, you were just telling me if you could relate the story, because I know you're a regular on Press TV, of what happened to you recently.
Well, I was on Press TV the night before last, but last night I was on Iranian television, the Iranian language television channel. And in the middle of it, I was cut off. I mean, they dropped me. And I thought, first of all, they must have a glitch. Then I said, oh, my God, they're at war. They might have, something might have happened. They got me back after about 10 minutes. But I see just half an hour ago that they blew up the state television network in Iran. So, this is what you're at now. They're at a stage of war where you can be in the middle of a television show and get blown up if they're hosts. So, it's a bad situation. Everybody's going to get hurt with this. Everybody's going to get damaged.
Oh, yeah. And one of the things that's interesting, and I've thrown it to another couple of other guests, but let me throw it at you and get your thoughts on it. And that is, and I'm going to bring up the article, and I hope people don't get tired of me seeing it, but and that is, here we go. One of the things we've talked about is the whole Zionist Project thing being, okay, the Israelis are safer. The Jews got to come here because they're safe and stay here. Yeah. And it's, around the world, blah, blah, blah. Here's what we see.
Yeah.
Just like they shut the doors of Gaza. They said, we're going to bomb the hell out of you. We're going to not let you get any food. You're not going to have electricity or water, and you can't leave. And all of these Zionists were partying. They were having, parties and cookouts and all that kind of stuff. And now, as the chickens come home to roost, all of these people from Brooklyn and Paris and the suburbs of London who are like, holy crap, things are going bad. This is not what we thought we would get. We're out of here. And the Israeli government says, nah. This is now an imperial concentration camp for Jews. This is not a Jewish homeland. If somebody tells you you can't leave this area and you're getting a crap bombed out of you, they've stuck you in a concentration camp and you're being bombed, Jim. That's how I read it.
Well, that's the way of looking at it. And this is one of the main weak points of Zionism. They need Jews from around the world emigrating to Israel and staying there. And they're not going there to be fighting, to be under attack, to be threatened with bombing and missiles and drones. They're there to have nice, comfortable lives, living the lives of colonial mastery over their Palestinian servants or their absent Palestinian servants, the servants from other countries after they expel the Palestinians. So if Jewish settlers start to leave, and they're all settlers, if Jewish Israelis start to leave, that is one of the main fractures of Zionism that could undermine it very, very deeply. As one of the IRCG commanders said, I wrote about this in 2020, when they said we have now missiles in Hezbollah, we have missiles in Syria, we have missiles in Iran. Israel's surrounded by missiles. Once those missiles start flying, there's going to be a lot of traffic at the Israeli airports. And as I said, the Israelis the settlers are going to be leaving, going to the east bank of the Hudson, back to the east bank of the Hudson. So that is what they have to worry about. That's why they have to put this down fast, and they can't let that situation fester where the Jewish population of Israel is under threat and doesn't have a comfortable life, has a dangerous life. People aren't going there for a dangerous life. They have to provide them the Riviera, So that's one of the real weak points of of Zionism that should be exploited. Iran has, and because they've lost. I mean, let's face it. One of the things where's Hezbollah here? Syria has been lost, so they're not surrounded anymore by missiles. They're only they got Yemen. That's true. Yemen is.
You gotta give credit to the Houthis, man.
Total credit. But this needs to be a coordinated attack. Really needs to be a coordinated offensive military attack by all of the armed groups in the region that are armed Palestinian and anti-Zionist resistance. And they've weakened Hezbollah, and they've taken over Syria, and Syria is not available to them anymore. So, it makes it a little more difficult, but they're still succeeding enough that people are leaving, and the regime in Israel is concerned enough about that to prevent them from leaving, to tell the airlines, you can't take these people on your plane and drive them and fly them back to the East Bank of the Hudson.
I'm looking at it now, and people have been saying for the last couple of years, for the 20-some months that they've been committing a genocide, we're looking at the end of Israel, and when it gets to the point where you can't let the people leave, I don't know how Israel really could recover for this reason, because all it is now is just a war.
You with me? I think you froze up. You with me?
You know what I mean? All it is just.
You're freezing.
It's at war.
Connection is bad. You're dripping in and out. You're blipping in and out. It's me? No, because I got that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. You were flipping in and out. I don't think it was my problem.
Oh, I don't think it was either one of our problems.
Get blown up.
You know what I mean? I don't think it was either one of our problems. I think there's people like, oh man, this is not going well. We gotta, I think we're going to see some of these software companies have a whole lot of problems. So Israel has a lot of software and tech stuff going on, cyber attacks, dare I say. So I don't know how well it's going to work, but we'll keep giving it a shot. At any rate, and I'll ask yours. Whatever happens, I don't see how Israel can survive, because the people there have to be coaxed in, and they have to feel safe. And I put it like this: if I'm Jewish, hey, what are you going to do? Let's go back to Israel. It'd be 25 years before I'd even consider such a thing.
Yeah. Look, this is the question. Mohammed Marandi said this in a tweet the other day. Oh, I saw it on Twitter. The issue here is not nuclear weapons. The issue here is Palestine. The issue here, to put it another way, is Zionism, is the future of Zionism. The Israelis have decided to solve the Palestinian issue by getting rid of the Palestinians once and for all. They've decided they cannot rule over a region from the river to the sea where the Palestinian Arabs are the majority of the population, according to the Israeli army. And so in the territory that Israel controls, the Palestinian Arabs are the majority of the population. They have to get rid of them. They have to kill or expel them, as they did in 48. And that's what they've done. In order to do that, they systematically, programmatically got rid of every nation state in the region that was a military and material supporter of the Palestinian anti-Zionist resistance, from Iraq to Syria, to Libya, and now to Syria. Okay. And the only one left, not the only one, you have Yemen, which is real, but that's also not entirely over yet, and they're not that strong a country. The biggest problem now, and this is what the Wesley Clark 7 countries, this was about that. This is about eliminating the possibility of a strong armed resistance to Zionism, and securing the future of Zionism, therefore, by ultimately eliminating any resistance to the erasure, the expulsion of the Palestinian people, expulsion and extermination. That's what's happening. So Iran is the last remaining really strong power, and it's a strong enough power, and Israel knows it. But they've got them now weakened. They have them weakened from what they did to Hezbollah, what they did to the Iranian leadership. And Iran, fell for the negotiation ploy. But anyway, my point is, this is the issue here. The outcome of this is either going to further secure the future of Zionism and the erasure of the Palestinians it's going to be the erasure of the Palestinians, because they're not getting back after this, and get Iran off the table as a resistant powerful enough to resist that for 10 or 20 years, or it's going to be the Israelis having to confront a crisis of Zionism, which is going to require them to pull back from Gaza and start, having problems keeping the Israeli Jewish population together and coherent. So that's one of the reasons. That's the stake in this. That's what's at stake, and that's what we're going to see a resolution of in one way or another. And I cannot be. I'm certainly not sanguine or terribly optimistic about how it's going to work out, because at the end of the day, as Morandi is acknowledging, this is a principled stand of Iran to oppose the Zionist colonization of Palestine and to save the Palestinians from final erasure, final elimination, final expulsion, extermination. And in order to go through that, Israel is not going to give up on this. And the United States is part of it. And they are not going to surrender that. So Iran, to win this battle, is going to have to take the hits, which are going to include nuclear strikes. No question about it. Israel is going all in on this, and they are. Anybody who thinks Israel will say, well, we're about to lose, but we won't use those weapons because that'd be too nasty. No. They're going to use them. And they're going to use them before the last chance comes. They'll use them right away. They'll use them as soon as they think it's necessary. And the Americans are going to go along with it. And Donald Trump himself now has said he would use nuclear weapons. Well, he says everything, 10 different things in 10 different days. But that's the stake. The stake is the future for the Palestinians and the future of Zionism. Israel knows it. They're all in on it. They will use every weapon at their disposal. The United States is all in it with Israel. This is not a matter of dragging the United States into this. This is a matter of dragging the United States out of it, out of the plan that is unfolding, that they have enacted, which is step by step we increase our involvement in this. That's the plan that's going to inexorably unfold unless enough political protest and power in the United States comes up to drag the United States out of that. And I don't foresee that happening quickly enough. So this is the problem. It's a very serious problem. They have a lot of tools. You're going to see however many missiles Iran has, the United States has enough. Okay. They will use everything, including nuclear weapons. And they will start in on the Kurdish Liberation Front and the Balochistan Liberation Front, and they will start funding all, there is a segment of Iranian society and elite that wants to be closer to the United. Why should we die for the Palestinians? Once the nuclear weapons start blowing, how many cities are we going to lose in order to save the Palestinians? Is our principal stand of anti-Zionism? Look at Saudi Arabia, UAE, Morocco, other Arab countries, Turkey, everybody exists side by side with Israel. So what? Why can't we do this too? This is going to, that's what's going to undermine Iran. And it's very, very difficult. So nobody should be triumphalist about this. However many strikes Iran makes on Israel, it ain't over till it's over. And we're in the middle of a war, and nobody knows how this is going to end. And it's foolish for the Iranians and the Americans to underestimate. It's foolish for the Israelis and the Americans to underestimate Iran, which they have been doing. But it's also very foolish for us in the anti-Zionist left to underestimate the power of Israel and the United States. And the difficulties that exist, that are going to come up, that have come up, that will come up, and that exist within the divisions and contingencies of Iranian society and polity itself. So I'm really not. I'm feeling very bad about the situation, very uneasy about how it's going to work out.
Well, there's so many things we could touch on, but let's touch on this one. You know, there's a discussion. I'm taking a whole different perspective. You know, there are people. Well, I'll put it like this. I've doubled down on what I believe. So this is what people were saying. Yes, Israel's going to attack and quote drag the United States into it. Right? Okay. Here's where I am. Israel, the plan. Look, this was done by Mossad, CIA internally. So first of all, Mossad, CIA, MI6, you all use the same words when you say that. They've been working inside of Iran. At the same exact time, they were doing the same thing. What's interesting is they were doing the same thing inside of Russia. And Lavrov said, oh, yeah, the Mossad's been all over. So Lavrov, the Russians already knew this. You know, they already said, oh, the Mossad's all over this. So the Russians know what they're dealing with, right? But my point is, so is CIA, Mossad, MI6 is working this twin action. They're doing the same thing in Russia, same thing in at the same exact time. This is the same operation going on at the same time in two different countries. And as I've said, China just needs to find the drone bases. You know they're doing it in China. China just needs to find out where they are. But here's my point. So this is going on. This is the plan. This is a plan with the U.S. and Israel. It's not Israel. It's not U.S. waiting at it. It's they know the whole time that they're supposedly negotiating. They ain't negotiating. They're waiting until they get this set up so they can take their action. The whole thing was a fraud, right? Here's what that tells me. This is not about Israel doing something and then the U.S. deciding whether to get in and possibly getting dragged in. This is, here's what we'll do. Iran's going to respond. That's the pretext. And then we'll say, oh, I guess we've got to go after Israel. The whole news cycle, everyone are like, when's Trump going to attack? How's Trump going to attack? Why is Trump going to attack? Trump's got to attack, right? So then Israel starts. You already know what the plan is. Then they say, okay, let's squeeze Trump a little bit. We get him in and boom. So this is a two-part thing. This is not whether or not the U.S. gets dragged in. This is the intent is Israel does that. That creates the pretext because the U.S. can't just do it on their own. They got to say, these are crazy people. We can't control them. Oh, wait a minute. We got to go help them. They're our friends. That's my opinion, Jim.
Yeah, well, look, the United States is involved now. This couldn't have happened without American involvement, refueling, weapons, intelligence, they're now flying 20 more refueling planes across the ocean. What's that for? So, as I say, this was a plan that would set up to unfold step by step. First, it's just Israel going to do. Okay, you got Israel is attacking, so we're uninvolved. Even though 1 minute he says, I know all about it, and I give him a green light, and I'm fine with it, and it's wonderful, and I hope they blow everything up. No, next, we have nothing to do with this. This is baloney. Nobody in the world believes this who's not a child or liar. Okay, so the Americans are involved. And as I say, we're watching the unfolding of a plan and we're watching the steps unfold. So it's a matter of dragging the Americans out of that which they're already involved in. And that's a tough political task in the United States. And pretending they're not involved, pretending, oh, will Trump be dragged in? Will we be dragged in? Is foolish, is to avoid the issue. We are involved in this. Israel did this with us, not just with our permission, but also with our involvement and with the British and the Germans. And they're involved because we're involved. So we run that show too. So the question that Americans face is, how can we drag the United States out of it? We know where the plan is going. As you say, there's no question about this.
Within 48 hours, I would imagine the U.S. That was always
well.
The
they have to fly.
Days.
They're flying. As I say, refueling jets. They're going to maybe a week. Maybe they're setting up their systems there so they're ready to go full on, because they want to get this over. Israel needs to get this over quickly in some way or another. And that's going to be difficult to do. Iran can hold on. Iran can hurt. But Iran is holding back. And Iran is still saying, oh, we'll still negotiate. Iran has not attacked.
Well, let me ask you this, Jim. I think that it is not that Iran is holding back because they're scared or whatever. I believe, let's face it, if we can figure it out, they could. I think Iran always knew. They've been preparing for this war for the last, I don't know how many years. And I'm sure that Iran knows we're going to get the US is coming in. And I think what they are doing is using their old missiles saying, when this thing goes big, we're going to have to do things differently. I think there is a plan. Let me ask you this, though. This is what I wanted to get to with the name Bumbling into Debacle. Americans have been sitting home watching TV. You remember CNN to Iraq? We're watching. Oh, look at that! A missile went right through the window. Oh, and we sat and we're watching a video game and we're watching a cartoon and we don't feel the pain. Straits of Hormuz closes down. Things start going bad in the oil. Americans are going really, really, for the first time in our lives, that we felt it. We've known what it was. Even like the last couple of years, we knew inflation was related to foreign policy, but most Americans don't put those together. But it'll be boom, boom. Americans are about to feel some real serious economic pain. I believe that we're on the verge of that.
Well, there's certainly, if Iran goes on a full-on offensive, closes the Straits of Hormuz, yes. And if they attack American installations, yes, Americans are going to feel pain. And Iran has to be willing to make the Israelis and the Americans feel a lot of pain. And I think they'd rather avoid, and I don't blame them right now for not attacking the Americans directly. Let the Americans be clear that they're coming in on behalf of Israel, not on behalf of themselves. But it's a kind of a catch-22 also, because the Americans are involved with military assets already. At some point, the Iranians are inevitably going to be hitting American military assets. But sure, but
it's a strategic decision.
The Americans are going to be involved, and there's going to be a hurt. And this is, and it has to be. The Iranians have to be principled. We are going to the end of this. We will take the hits, including the nuclear. They're trying to avoid that. No, I can't argue with them. If we do this, if we don't do this, will we not get nuked? They're still thinking that way. And, I don't blame them, but nothing's going to stop it.
And you got Pakistan now. I don't know what's going on with them. But again, it's a dangerous situation. Let me read something to you. This is something that I've been reading to people for a while. This is a book by Antony Blinken called Ally versus Ally. And one of the discussions that he was having, and I brought this up, in the same way, and the context I brought it up was in Europe. When people are like, hey, the leadership of Europe is sacrificing their economy for their foreign policy, right? They're sacrificing their economy, everything for foreign policy. And I said, 1980s, Tony Blinken, here's what he was saying. And he was basically saying his group of people, the way they saw the world. And he says, for a number of influential policymakers, the time seemed opportune to engage the Soviet Union in a round of economic warfare. Regardless of the price that might have to be paid by the economies of Western Europe and the American business community, which would be excluded from the Soviet bloc markets. Back then, he was saying, look, there's people that are like, we need cheap oil from there. That was about the pipelines, right? We need cheap oil. That keeps our economy going. We need to sell them stuff. That keeps our economy going. And Blinken and his people were saying, we don't give a crap about that. Screw that. You guys think of it economically. We only think of it from the perspective of getting geopolitical advantage. And very shortly, if we're paying $10, $12, $15 a gallon, God only knows what, our economy collapses. Americans are like, what about us? They don't care. Look what they did to the economy. It's America, your economic cannon fodder. The Germans were economic cannon fodder. This ruling elite, you're going to get economically wiped out, and they really don't care. And that's what Americans need to understand. Absolutely. Once and for all. You think you elected these people to office, you didn't, but they will wipe you out. And when you say, hey, this is not fair, they'll call in Palantir. Watch what happens when you go to the protest.
The demonstration.
Right on the head with them. Beat the hell out. MAGA, nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, they asked me that last night on Iranian television. So, but if Donald Trump goes to war, if the Americans go to war, then isn't that going to hurt the American people? Do they really not care how much they hurt the American people? And I said, no, they don't. They don't. And especially with this issue. And it's particularly bizarre and non-rational from a geopolitical. You can see the rationality of it from in the Iranian case, because Russia is a big, powerful enemy of the, a rival of the United States and NATO, and et cetera. But in this case, this is an attachment to Zionism as something which makes you a virtuous thing, a virtuous person, a virtuous country, because you're supporting this Jewish state in the Middle East. And that means you're a good person. And that means we're a good country. This is baloney, but they're really attached to it. And they will destroy the United States in order to save Israel. Everybody has to realize that, because they think they're doing a virtuous thing, and if they're allowed to, I mean, again, if it comes to that, when the American economy is really being destroyed, American lives are really being lost, then you have then you have the possibility of a movement. The attachment to Zionism is not there anymore among the younger generations, and even among the general populace now. They're all saying, the MAGA base is all saying, this is not what we're in for. We don't want any more. So this has been undermined, the attachment to Zionism. But what I'm saying is, in the political and media elite, it is there. And if we allow them to, they will destroy our economy. They will destroy our country for the sake of trying to save Zionism, and because Zionism is under existential threat now, because Jews are trying to leave Israel, and etc. And the entire world hates the country. The entire world hates Israel, and they understand it's a racist colonial enterprise. And is it going to exist as apartheid South Africa or Hitlerian Germany, as if they kind of didn't go away at the end of World War II, at the end of, or 1991? They just stayed there for some reason. That's a horrible situation, and the world has to decide what it's going to do about that. But the United States has decided, and unless we drag them out of that, unless we insist, and it's going to come from the right, what we call the right and the left in this country, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, this is not our fight, and this is just going to hurt us, and that's right. And so, and the leftists who say this is colonialism and racism, and it is. So this is something we have to work hard at to make that political movement in the United States one where American politicians start to become scared to support Israel for their political future. And we're going to do that even though the money is on the other side.
Yeah, I think, within the next couple of weeks, the U.S. Could be within days, the U.S. will get involved. And I think in the immediate thing will be the Straits of Hormuz close. And then at that point, you're looking at, I mean, when people wake up and see $10 a gallon, man, there's going to be rage. And, Trump, he's going to try to backpedal like an NFL quarterback. No, we'll be out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 24 hours.
You have to understand, people have to, if they didn't understand before, they need to understand this. Trump is not in charge of anything. You know what the key was to me when they should have learned? Here's when they should have learned. Biden. They even said Biden, they talked about the auto pen. They talked about he's mentally incompetent. He's God only knows. What's interesting? Everything they said about Putin was that, you remember, Putin's got dementia. Putin's got cancer. Putin's got this. You know what? Whatever. They were talking about Joe Biden. But here's the thing about it. The fact that Biden was there and they were pretending that he was president and he was in charge of nothing should tell you that none of them are in charge. And now you bring Trump, and Trump ain't in charge of nothing. Yeah. He's got Peter Thiel's boy.
I have that great quote from the 70s from the chairman of Avis, I think it was. He said, the United States is run by, 10,000 bankers, 5,000 bankers, 10,000 of these, 5,000, and you could change a little bit of, you got the tech bros, et cetera. And the president of the United States is their chief tellboy. And that's the situation. Okay, now it's a little more complicated. He can make a decision if he wants to. And Trump is a kind of wild card that has made various decisions. But at the end of the day, he bends to the power of that deep state that is running things. And he does what they want. That's why, I'm going to take the troops out of Syria. No, you're not. And we'll here's a reason that you can say you're not. So this is true. And this is what I say to my Democratic friends. Now you know what you always knew. What every one of these politicians and every one of these media people are saying, oh my God, we just discovered that Joe Biden really wasn't all there. And he had a real problem. And he had dementia. And he had a mental competence problem and cognitive impairment and blah, blah. Oh, they were hiding it from us. I say, no, you really, if you say that to yourself now, you're continuing the problem. People knew, I knew, we told you, a lot of people told you. You didn't want to hear it. You were attacking people who were telling you that. You have to acknowledge and take account of your own culpability and vulnerability and stupidity, really, in allowing yourself to be fooled by something that was kind of obvious. This is not their problem. This is not Jake Tapper's problem or the Anthony Blinken problem. It's your problem that you allowed yourself. There was plenty of evidence there. And I say this to the Trump and MAGA people now. If you're not getting that Donald Trump really doesn't know what the hell he's doing and that he's really not running things, he doesn't know how to run things, is he or isn't he part of involved in this attack? He says one thing 1 minute, next thing. Did he really think he was going to solve the Ukraine issue in 24 hours? Yes, he did. He doesn't understand a thing. Did he really think he was going to deport all the 12 million migrants? Yes, he did. And he can't do it. He's importing fewer migrants than
well, you heard what happened, right?
Biden.
You heard what happened? All these business guys are coming to him saying, hey, we can't run our businesses. We can't do this. Have you been reading about that? He's like, oh, I'm getting rid of all of these. And all of these rich business guys basically came up and said, dude, we use illegal immigrants. That's kind of the purpose of making sure they're illegal so we can pay them less. And we can't keep making this profit if you get rid of our illegal immigrants. And he said, okay, cool. And he stopped.
He exempted farm workers, hotel workers, and restaurant workers. Where do you think they work? I mean, that's
and what does he own?
3/4 of the.
He owns restaurants and hotels.
So this guy doesn't understand the consequences of what he says or does. And he's got people behind him who are going to push him in the ways that they want to push him. And I'm saying to them what I say to my Democratic friends, if you keep falling for this, don't blame the people who are fooling you. Blame yourself for being so stubborn as to go along with the tomfooleries for so long. We don't have the time for this anymore. We don't have the time for this. Donald Trump is nothing. He's a weak guy who talks tough but doesn't understand the consequences of what he says or does as president of the United States.
They'd kill him if he did. If he understood it, he was a threat to him. They treat him like they did RFK and JFK. I'm going to let the Epstein files go. I'm going to let RFK, Martin Luther King. First of all, we all know that Epstein didn't kill himself and that he was a Mossad CIA agent. We all know they killed RFK. We all know they killed JFK. We know they killed Martin Luther King. We know they killed all of them. So really, in reality, what is he really saying? I'm going to let this stuff go. Yeah, okay, you can if you want to. Fine. We know you can't. But we already all know this stuff. Yeah. So even if he did it, it wouldn't be anything of consequence if you're
honest.
What
he's saying is, I am not going to out the deep state. I'm not going to out the crimes of the deep state. I'm still going to keep them hidden because they won't let me do it.
Right.
Because they keep telling me, all these guys, they keep telling. So it's the same old. Look, and so there are different policies that have different specific things that are terrible in this respect and better in that respect. But he does not. The president is the head towel boy. And or girl. And, if he wants to buck them, then let him buck them. But, so let's see. He's not going to go send those American aircraft carriers against Iran. Of course, if he does, that's one of the things. That's one of the main things. If he sends aircraft carriers into the Persian Gulf, what Andrei Martynov always said was, the Americans are going to attack Iran when they take the carriers out of the Persian Gulf because they're sitting ducks. And he sends one of those in there, and they got the oldest one, I think John F. Kennedy, one of the oldest 50-year-old carrier that's going in there. So, to a certain extent, they're putting that out there as bait for the Iranians because that'll be, they've sunk an aircraft carrier. Now we have to
declare war. This and that. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So that's really it's very very dangerous. It's very dangerous.
Not only that, okay. Who's to guarantee that the Russians and the Chinese are just going to sit around and twiddle their thumbs? I don't know that they will get involved. I'm not saying they'll get involved, right? Yeah. I'm just saying when you do that, what happens if the Pakistan military says, "Oh God, this is good. They're going to," and what happens if one of the other local, vassals, the people in that country say, "You know what? There are some people in their military say, well, this is my duty as a Muslim. We're overthrowing this vassal government of the U.S. and now this military, you know what I mean? You're looking at
those are
this
the
guy's
dangers.
sitting here. Isn't he the one that said, "I don't want to start World War III"?
Yep. Yeah, I know. Look, those are the dangers. That I hope it happens. They need some revolutions in Saudi Arabia or Qatar. Get that American base. And Pakistan got to stop talking and start acting. It's very good. Send a nuclear weapon to Iran. But Iran has to be saying, okay, we'll take a nuclear weapon and we'll use it. There's just so many variables here that are so dangerous, and nobody should feel comfortable being triumphalist about, oh, it is the case that Iran is 10 times bigger than Israel. Iran can outlast Israel. Long as this goes on between Iran and Israel, and that nobody really can go in and take over Iran. Can't put boots on the ground in Iran. That'll be a disaster. Disaster.
Not doable.
But they can do this combination of blowing up a lot of things and nuclear weapons. Cities are gonna look what the Israelis are hitting. They're not hitting Ukrainian, the Iranian nuclear reactors. They're hitting command and control. They're hitting cities, etc. They're going to terrorize the Iranians with nuclear weapons, and they're going to work to undermine the Iranian society and polity with these liberation movements and these, color revolution type things. And the Shah's son is going to come in, and everybody, and we're going to have a free and democratic and secular Iran. They don't care.
No.
If tomorrow the Ayatollah Khomeini said, "Oh, we accept this Zionist project. We accept Israel. We'll be like Turkey." And this is what Marmandi said, this is what he's in principle. We're not going to do that. We're not going to be like Turkey or Saudi Arabia or Morocco. We're not going to say, "Oh, we'll accept." Yeah, we'll criticize their policies now and then, but we're going to accept the Zionist project. And whatever happens to the Palestinians, we don't really care at that. We're not going to do anything to save the Palestinians. If they change nothing else but that, the United States would leave them alone. They'd have good relations. They'd drop all the sanctions. They'd leave them alone. This is not about democracy. It's not about secularism. It's about the Palestinians. It's about Zionism. And that's what everybody, Marandi was very good about that. But if the Iranian regime is going to fight for that, then they have to fight for it. And it's going to be a fight to the death of one cause or the other.
And I think it spreads because my understanding is that the Taliban in Afghanistan have said, if the U.S. comes in, they'll declare war on the U.S. and Israel. I think the thing about it is, I don't see how the U.S. and Israel can say, we're going to attack the Muslims and just wipe them all out after, you know what I mean? It will.
They're not wiping out all the Muslims.
No, but I'm just saying,
They care about Zionism, about accepting the Jewish state.
Yeah. My point is this. I don't see how the U.S. gets involved and this thing doesn't spread. You know what I mean? It's guaranteed to spread into that. It's like this. You get into a war. It's the stupidity of that you get into it and then it turns. In Ukraine. Oh, we'll just do this. We'll set this up. We'll get this going. And then we'll put all of these 20,000 sanctions on Russia. Russia will collapse, blah, blah, blah. And when they didn't collapse, the truth is they didn't have a second plan. Yeah. Russia was supposed to crumble. When Russia didn't crumble, they're like, what do we do now? Just keep throwing weapons in there and money. Just keep that. Keep going. Look, and we'll see what happens. Something's good, but we just can't stop. They didn't have a plan.
Yeah.
This is the opposite of a plan. What they're doing is what you do when a plan doesn't work. And they'll get in this mess. But the thing about it is, Americans are not used to feel. What I want to see is what happens at home, because Americans ain't used to feeling this kind of economic pain. And Americans will go friggin' bananas here. Yep. I think. Not that that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Who they're going to blame? Could be me.
It has to happen. Israelis and Americans have to feel the pain. They have to suffer damage. They have to say, this is hurting my life materially and personally. And do I want to continue doing this? But that's exactly the program that Israel and the United States have for the Iranians too. This is the game you're in now. This is the game you're in, and you've got to accept it and fight it and be impose more pain on your enemy than the enemy imposes on you. There's no alternative to this at this point. And the side that says we can't take this is not worth it to us anymore to take any more pain like this is the side that loses. And I don't know whose that's going to be. Nobody can tell. And the Americans and the Israelis have this delusional sense, we can always win on everything and blah. And it's going to be very, very hard because the Iranians went. One of the worst wars of the 20th century was the Iran-Iraq War, which was instigated by the West with their partner Saddam Hussein against Iran. Millions of people were killed. And Iran, they thought that would do Iran in, and it didn't. And Iran became stronger. And the Americans turned around against their partner, Saddam Hussein, and hung him because the Israelis wanted him gone.
And the Iranians saw that. The Iranians saw that. They know they can't make a deal with the devil.
Well,
they know they can't.
No, there is a faction in Iran that does that at least until now. How
about just like Russia? You had this whole bunch of liberals in Russia that thought, and then after Ukraine, that's done. You know what I mean? What they did in Ukraine is wiped out that sentiment. You had a bunch of Russians that left and said, oh, well, we're not going to stand here with this, and left. And they went to other countries in Europe, and they're like, we hate you. You're Russian. They're like, oh, shit. And they went back. And now they're like more vehement in supporting the SMO than the others. So they wiped out that. And that's one of the things, the paradoxes of this. When you attack a country, the people in the country circle the wagons. The people in the country oppose the attacker. Now you're killing their brothers and sisters and friends. So there's a paradoxical effect of doing that.
And I think I hope that's what works out with Iran. And I hope they brush off or fight off or fend off what are going to be all those undermining, the MEK and the Pakistan Liberation Front and the Kurdish Liberation Front and all these various democratic groups that are going to pop up to overthrow this nasty regime of the mullahs and let women walk around without headscarves anymore. This is all. Everybody's going to have to figure out how they deal with that. The Iranians are going to have to figure out how they deal with that. But I tend to think that it's not going to be. It's no longer. It's certainly not easy, and I don't think it's even really plausible that the United States and the Western, this whole color revolution apparatus will work in any way in Iran. But we're going to have to see. We're going to have to see. And if it doesn't, look, I just don't know. It is hard to see how the Israelis can get out of it. They have to, if this fighting stops with Iran having made no concession about nuclear enrichment, they even said that in the Times today, then Israel's been made a fool of, and they've disgraced themselves before the world again for getting into a fight, blowing a lot of people and killing a lot of people and blowing a lot of things up and bringing the world close to World War III, and they couldn't even get what they want, and they'll be backed off. But that's what I'm saying. They're not going to come. They're not going to stop. As long as there's something they have in their quiver that they think will get them they'll use it, and they have something. And this is different. Ukraine doesn't have nuclear weapons, and Iran isn't as powerful as Russia. And the United States is involved in this. Will be directly involved very soon. And Iran is going to have to decide: will we move forward when they bring out those nuclear weapons? And the United States is all over this. Will we continue to fight until we either beat them off politically, what you need is getting that you need to spread it. It needs to go all over. You need to be attacking the bases in Qatar and having fomenting revolutions in other countries and getting the Pakistanis and the Yemens, getting the Hezbollah. And where's Hezbollah? Are they really destroyed this much? If they're not, then they should be involved in this right now. They got to start. Israel has to be hit from all around. Every place you can hit them. Okay, and foment. There's got to be some discontent among the jihadi base in Syria. Foment those suckers to be, to start attacking Israel, or having a civil war and a new civil war in Syria that that the Israelis have to move in to take care of that in some way or another. You've got to get everybody involved in this, as many as you can. You can't be doing it. Oh, we're going to hit back at Iran. We're going to hit back at Israel. We're going to hit back. We're going to hit back. But the minute you want to come back to negotiations, we'll stop if they stop. You see, that's.
But they know what's going on. They know as well as we do that the U.S. is preparing to attack.
They have to, but they know it, and they also know they're going to take the hits.
Yes,
and a lot of people in Iran are going to say, "How much hit do we want to take to save the Palestinians?" Just like Lebanon, Hezbollah, a lot of Lebanese. We don't want this happening just in order to save the Palestinians. At some point, will there be enough discontent in Iran over the hits they're taking to say we don't let Israel be the hegemon of the region?
You know what? Let me throw something else at you. If you understand Shia Islam, right? One of the tenets, one of the pillars of Shia Islam is no humiliation. That's a foundation to death before humiliation. You know what I mean? So if you could pick someone that would stand, that the one thing they can't do at all, period, point blank, is be humiliated. In a government, you're out if you get humiliated. You have violated a foundation of their culture and their religion. I'll say this, and this is something else to take into account. Look, I think there could be a number of surprises. Let me throw this one at you. And again, to me, I don't believe what happens here is decided by as much as by what happens in the region. Okay. And everybody remember I said that. That's what happens right here in the United States. That will be the decisive. The United States government reacts to domestic policy. And they're like, oh, we'll do this. And when the people feel the hurt, the pain, holy crap, $10 a gallon. And they go to the grocery store. Oh my God. We got hyperinflation. We got this. We got that. The layoffs start.
Yeah.
People are the people that are doing gig work. There's nothing there. People are sitting there with their stores open. Nobody's coming in buying anything. Cars are lot shut down. Nobody's making a dime. And they see collapse. They will go ape shit. And might I add this? I don't underestimate China, Russia, some other countries, and to do something like this, to do something very significant. It's significant. It's existential to them too. What happens if China says, "Look, you stepped over the line here. We're not selling you anything.
Yeah,
full embargo. We're not selling you anything. We're not selling you. Nope, no, not nothing. Not even a plastic squeeze toy for your dogs." As long as you're at war with Iran, that's something that China can do. And the people, because they got to put the pain on the American people and say, no, sorry, that's it. Oh, by the way, all of those rare earth minerals, you're ever getting that back. Yeah. Ever. It's over.
And I think China's the number one trade partner, I think, of Israel. Yeah. They got to, this is exactly this has to spread. And you're right. And that's what I'm saying before. We need a political upheaval in the United States to force the American politicians to stay out of this fight and to get out of the fight. Not to stay out, to get out of it. And because everybody has to realize they're in it. Don't fool yourself, Marjorie Taylor Greene or Stephen Bannon, that Trump hasn't made his mind up yet. Whatever Trump's mind is made up, we're in this fight. He's been dragged into it, and he's going to be dragged along unless we drag it out, unless we drag him out. So this is, we got to have a political among Democrats. It's going to be fought like hell from Chuck Schumer to Bernie Sanders. No, Israel does not have a right to defend itself. We are on the side of, at least we don't care. The very least, I don't care what happens to Israel and what happens to the Jewish exceptionalist state of Israel. That's the very least you have to do. And the Democrats will go down the line with this.
Oh, of course.
And so you're going to be fighting everybody, and you got to have a political upheaval. You can't vote for anybody. You're going to vote for someone who's going to fight for Jim Crow in Palestine, and you call yourself anti-racist, anti-fascist. So this is baloney. Everybody has to get on that page clearly and decisively and massively and with unapologetically and without any reservation. And they have to know it. They're going to lose their seats. Nobody's going to vote for them. Any side, I don't care. Go let the percentage of people go down to 25%, and then claim it's a democracy. Still try to claim it's a democracy. This is what has to happen. But it's a big task in the United States. The elite and the forces that control are going to resist that mightily. They're going to put people in jail, that they're doing, and they're going to throw you out of your job, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very, very difficult. But that's what has to happen. Plus, as you say, Malaysia is saying it's going to send 1,000 ships to a 1,000 ship flotilla to Gaza. Go ahead, do it.
Yes.
There should be 10 countries with 5,000 ships. That China and Russia should have warships saying and Turkey, the sons of bitches,
Erdogan's worthless.
They should be escorting a flotilla of humanitarian aid and saying, we will fight you if you try to stop us from going in. This isn't the little ship with 10 people on it. This is 100 ships with warships that will fight you, Israel, if you come in, and the United States, because we're coming in with humanitarian aid. We're not coming in to attack Israel. We're coming in with humanitarian aid. That should have happened months ago. It hasn't. I don't think it's going to, but that's what you need.
But we have no idea what's going to happen.
I know.
And I suspect there's a lot of smart people in this world. I suspect that things are going to happen that we don't expect. I suspect that there are plans. I don't think that the world's just going to sit there and say, okay, let me watch this and see what happens. They're very smart people in this world. And I suspect that there are people in the world who have planning to do things, but we don't know. But as I said, man, you watch America. America could go real bad.
Yeah.
America could go real bad. There's a lot of angry people with guns, and America could go. Look, we just saw some guy that didn't like the way some people voted or something, and he went and shot a couple of politicians up in Minnesota. You know what I mean? That's a sign of an unstable country.
Oh, yeah. No, it's very true.
This country's unstable.
Yeah, it is.
And do you remember when, what was it, Nixon, who looked outside and he saw the buses and the protesters? He says, oh, no, I think they're coming to get us. Are we going to get out of here alive?
Yep.
The time that, man, when people can't feed their families and they're losing everything, they're going to get desperate, and desperate people. What is it? The James Baldwin, the worst thing a country can create is a man who's got nothing left to lose. And they're going to create a country of people who have nothing left to lose. Yeah. And people who say, we voted for you so you wouldn't do this. Yeah. You promised us you wouldn't do this. Yeah. We stood behind you because all for you not to do this. You lied to us. We've been had. It is a devastation of American politics as a result. And to be honest, I hate to say it, economic pain is the only thing that'll wake Americans up. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. That's what happened in the oil embargo. That's a possibility. Whether it happens, I don't know. That's a possibility. Those types of things, from like the 70s.
Well, there'll be if they close the Straits of Hormuz,
it's effectively an oil embargo.
There's going to be a de facto crash in the oil supply. Although the Americans don't need that oil as much, but Europeans do.
Europeans throw it.
And
the world market, it'll dramatic, even though we don't need it, the market will drive the prices through the roof.
Yes, and they drive the prices up. And this is where, as you say, Russia could turn the tables with this economic sanction stuff. So we're not going to sell you oil anymore. We want this over. So, I don't know what, as you say, it's absolutely right. When something like this starts, it's the old, Mike Tyson philosophy. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. and this is the point. Nobody knows where the next punch is coming from and which hand it's going to be, and whether it's going to be below the belt or above the belt, or whether the glove will be loaded with buckshot or whatever. Things are going to happen that are going to surprise everybody. And I don't know. I want to avoid, again, I don't think anything's inevitable. No. I think the way I put it in the last article is the arc of history bends where it's forced to, where it's forced to bend. Yeah. It doesn't bend by itself. It bends where someone forces it to bend. And this is the situation we're in now. We're in a fight that's going to be settled by force, just like the Ukrainian thing. Once that started, I said right away, this is going to be one side or the other is going to be signing. The only negotiations are going to be over terms of surrender. And this is going to be this too. This is the situation now. The only negotiations are over terms of surrender. And these are the terms of surrender about the Palestinians, about Palestine and Zionism. And not about nuclear weapons or nuclear. That's a secondary issue. That's entirely secondary.
Oh, that was just a bull crap. That was WMDs in Iraq. You know what I mean? It's always the same thing.
The terms of surrender are Iran saying we accept Zionism. We accept the Jewish supremacist state. We're not going to bother with it. Or, on the other hand, the Israeli state saying we are going to have to figure out a way to deal with that we did not force Iran to accept us. They're still going to be supporting the resistance. They're still going to be doing this. And we cannot force them out of this. We cannot force them out of that stance. And that's a very dangerous thing for Israel, because that would have been, we've gone through this whole conflict with them and suffered whatever, and we didn't get what we needed to get from them. And we're probably now never going to get it. So it's going to end one way or the other. And I hope it ends with the complete defeat of Zionism. I hope that ends with, the Israeli regime being so weak that they say we can't support this Jewish supremacist state anymore because everybody's leaving. And they'll leave the minute we'll let them out on the planes. But I can't say that I feel for certain, or even
no. Who knows? Because
it's going to end with that happening.
Yeah, who knows?
It won't end with Iran saying, "Oh, we'll accept the Zionist state."
Look, for all we know, they could start firing, and Russia could start firing, and China could start firing. Yep. China could say, "We're taking Taiwan right now," and Russia could say, "You know what? We're going to do offensive and finish this Ukraine thing off right now," which could happen. Could happen. The Russians have been saying we're ready to, look, we could act if we want to. We could do a launch of, a massive strike and finish this thing off if we really chose to. The Russians could do a decapitation strike and just say, all the leadership of whatchamacallit, look, unfortunately, in Kiev, in the neighborhoods, some people are going to die. Sorry, but we're going to do a decapitation strike of the full leadership of Kiev. They're all dead. And we'll say, what do you want to do? You got no leadership now. You're going to keep fighting with no leadership. And by the way, you got nothing coming. And the Iranians know it. They got no missiles. They just had like 20,000 missiles going to Ukraine. Now they're going over to Israel. So the Ukrainians know they're done. And I've said this from the beginning. One day the Ukrainians, armed to the gills, are going to say, we've been had by the Americans and the Europeans, and they're going to turn their terrorism against them. That's coming. That's guaranteed as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, Zelensky's learning what it is to be the side piece. Israel is the main squeeze for the Americans, always. And so Zelensky's learning the hard way. And the Chinese away. They took the aircraft carrier from the Pacific. The Chinese are sitting there going, hey, it's the Americans are putting themselves, they're weakening themselves by this. It's unnecessary. It's going to cost them in lives and treasure, and it's going to cost them in political strength in the world. They're already hated, and they're going to be hated even more, and they're going to be seen as having been used by the Israelis in a way that demeans the United States, and it does. But that's been the case for decades, except they've gotten away with it because there's nobody around and the ideological atmosphere was just accepting it as the natural world, part of the natural world, that the Americans and the Israelis are all one big thing. And, the Zionism is the greatest thing in the world, and we have to support it. And that's good that the Americans do. And let's have a two-state solution, because we want the Palestinians to have a nice time too. That's really the way it's been. And that's over. And I don't know how it's going to end. I'm frightened about it. And I'm kind of, also,
it's stressful. It makes you anxious because we don't know. I really believe that a lot of people game this out. Let's face it. You and I gamed it out. It wasn't hard to see the direction. It was like, well, it may happen, but the likelihood is this is the direction that it'll go, but it may be not. And it was just like you could game the Israelis attack or the Americans attack. Do you think they will? Do you think they won't? That was the discussion. It was not like a mystery what the potentials were here, right? And so now I think there is a mystery, because I believe there are a lot of smart people and BRICS people and what have you who have some plans, that they got some things to pull out of their hat. And of course, if I'm them,
you want to put the pain on the American people economically. You want to understand that if I'm them, that's what I'm thinking. The pain's going to be on the economic. If Americans feel empty shelves of just disastrous economic and they start seeing collapse, and add this, your bond market starts going nuts, because that's going to happen. You know what I mean? And your bond market starts going nuts, which is going to economically wipe you out. So there's just factors here that can't be taken into account. We don't know what the hell's going to happen, but we do know. I tell you what I think too. I think one of the things, look, the Iranians got to know that the Americans are coming in. They're not stupid. They know that. They're not saying it. Okay. I think they're talking about launching some big strike on Israel. So they see, okay, they're bringing in ships. They're bringing in, whatchamacallit, the Americans are about to join in. I think their plan is this. We're going to turn every place we need to turn in Israel rubble beforehand. We're going to weaken Israel so much.
That's what
that we're fighting the Americans. That they even said today, I was reading this thing and they said, all right, there's going to be a big attack on them, a huge missile attack is coming, and we're going to hit their military. And I think their plan is this. I would think they ain't going to have no place to take off in Israel. We're going to wipe out their military bases. We'll wipe them. If we got to fight, we'll fight one, but we won't fight both. Let's put Israel out of their misery as far as militarily, and then we'll have to fight the U.S. without the military, without the Israelis being able to help them, but so much. And I think that's neuter one.
Yeah. But listen, I hope they do. I mean, really, I hope Israel is defeated. I hope Israel is, is forced to accept defeat. And I hope Iran demolishes their military infrastructure as much as they can, as quickly as they can.
Yeah, it's a mess, Jim. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Jim Kavanagh. Tell everybody where they can find you.
You can catch me on my Substack. I think it's down there on the screen. Jim Kavanagh's The Polemicist Substack. On X, Twitter at The Polemicist _ and I'm on various places around the web. Sometimes on Counterpunch. But Substack is the best place. I publish everything on Substack, including my media appearances.
All right. Thank you very much. Certainly.
Thank you, Golden. That was fun.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know if fun's the right word. I guess for us, it's fun because you got to enjoy what you're doing, or there's no point in doing it, But that's a good word. It was fun. I'll put it like this. Let me say this, Jim, and I think this is critical. It really, and I really mean this. Anybody who's watched any of the mainstream media the last few days, if they didn't recognize before that this was just puppetry of the neocon system, right? The media, you turn it on and why isn't Trump attacking Iran right now? When's Trump going to realize it? How do we get Trump to realize, right? What we're doing is important. That's why what we're doing is important.
Yeah. It's very good that we're out there, that the voices like us are out here and people can see them and get to them. It's just horrible watching the mainstream media. Horrible. From Fox and MSNBC, it's just horrible, horrible, horrible.
They're exactly the same. Fox and MSNBC, the line is exactly the same. So, all right. Thanks a lot. Everybody, don't forget, share this on all your social media platforms. Jim Kavanagh, follow him on his Substack and check him out. He's all over the place online, and he's doing lots of good work. And not all over the place like Trump. Okay, all over the place like literally, kinetically, he's all over the internet. So that's what I mean. He's not all over the place, philosophically and ideologically. Thanks a lot, Jim. Everybody, don't forget, share this on all your social media platforms. Follow me on Rockfin, follow me on Rumble, follow me on Telegram, follow me on Patreon. If you can afford it, PayPal, buy me a coffee or something like that would be wonderful. And by the way, and follow me on my Substack. Last but not least, I got a P.O. box. So if you want to mail something to me at my P.O. box, feel free. I got a folder right here of things that I've read and some I've been able to respond to. Thanks a lot. We're out.